Okay guys, today we're going to be looking at 1.5, which consists of ratios, rates, and conversions. And we're going to talk about the essential question, how do you convert between units? So there's your topic and your essential question. So get your Cornell notes set up for me, please. And before we get started, I have a couple of vocabulary words we're going to add to our vocabulary page. So we're going to add all of those before we actually get started in the notes. Remember, at any time, if you need to pause the video, make sure that you do, because I'm not going to wait for pauses for you to be able to write stuff down. So you're definitely going to want to pause the video if you need more time to write. The first vocabulary word that we're going to add, right underneath the word formula, we're going to add the vocabulary word ratio. The definition of a ratio is something that compares two numbers by division. So 3/5 is a ratio. We can also write ratios with a colon, so 3:5. And that reads as 3:5. So if we're talking about a ratio 3:5, we can also write that 3:5, which reads 3:5, or 3/5. But they all mean the same thing. The second word that we're going to add is rate, and I would like you to note that rate and unit rate I put in the same box because they are related. So I just cut the box in half, and I did rate and unit rate in the same box because the definitions are related to each other. So the definition of a rate is a ratio that compares quantity measured in different units. So the definition of rate is a ratio that compares quantities measured in different units. For example, 20 miles in 2 hours. So we can say that you drove a car or rode your bike, and in 2 hours you rode 20 miles. So 20 miles for every 2 hours is a rate. Unit rate, you should have talked about in 7th grade. It is a rate with a denominator of 1. So it's if we take a regular rate that is given to us and then we reduce it as much as possible so that the denominator has a denominator of 1. So 20 miles in 2 hours actually reduces to a unit rate of 10 miles in 1 hour, or we can write that in words, 10 miles per hour. So anytime you have a unit rate that's, for example, 10 miles per 1 hour, that's a unit rate. Our last vocabulary word for today is conversion factor. A conversion factor is a ratio of two equivalent measures in different units. One of them should always be equal to 1. So for example, there is 12 inches in 1 foot. We could also write this as 12 inches in 1 foot. It kind of depends on how we're going to convert, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So a conversion factor, one of the units always must be equal to 1, but it's the ratio that allows you to change between units. So for example, 12 inches and 1 foot. So let's go back to our notes. We're going to start the notes with an example. So as always, I have my blank on the left side where you are going to write questions, and then you should all be taking notes on the right side. And I do want you to have this example written down. So example 1, store A is selling 2 shirts for $25. That's store A. Store B is selling 4 shirts for $45. And store C is selling 3 shirts for $30. I want to know which store is the best deal. I'm going to put a question mark there because that's where the question is. So I won't, because each of these stores has a different deal and they're all for different amounts of shirts, I can figure out what the best deal is by finding the unit rate or the unit cost per shirt. So we're going to find the unit rate for each of the stores. So store A, I'm selling 2 shirts for $25. So I'm going to write that as a ratio. $25 gets me 2 shirts. And I put the 2 shirts in the denominator because we want to know what the unit rate for shirts is for each individual shirt. So we're going to be dividing by shirts. 25 divided by 2 means that each shirt is $12.50. Now let's do store B. So store B is selling 4 shirts for $45. So it costs $45 for 4 shirts, which reduces to $11.25 for 1 shirt. And you are allowed to use a calculator here. Store C costs $30 and you get 3 shirts, which reduces to $10 for 1 shirt. So of these 3 stores, store C sells you 1 shirt for the cheapest. So store C is the best deal. Let's write that as a sentence. So store C is the best deal because the unit rate is $10 per shirt. So what happens when I'm trying to convert between systems? So this problem, I'm just finding the unit rates between dollars and shirts. I'm not converting units. But we will ask you to convert actual between units or different systems. So we're going to use what is called dimensional analysis. So converting between units using dimensional analysis. Step 1, you are going to set up the given rate as a ratio. Step 2, you will then write the conversion factor, and that will either be given to you in the problem or you can look it up if you need to. As a ratio, so the units will reduce, and that's the important part here. So I want you to circle that word. Reducing the units is the important part, and I'll show you how to do that. You will repeat step 2 until desired units are achieved. So sometimes you might have to convert between, do multiple conversions. So we'll have a whole bunch of ratios lined up here. So what you are going to do is multiply all the numerators, and then you're going to multiply all the denominators straight across, and then we will divide. So everyone will have one of these conversion charts. It's small enough. What I am going to have you guys do is, so that we can fit all of this in here, you are going to tape this into your notes. So you can tape it maybe after we're done doing all of the notes. I'm going to have you tape it to the back of your notes. So at the very, very end, after the last example, right before your summary, I'll have you tape that into your notes. Or what I kind of like to do is I'm going to tape it right underneath all of the steps. And then I'll put my examples underneath so it kind of flips over. So I have my units of measurement with me. Okay? So that's what you guys are going to do after you're done with all of the notes. So for right now, you'll just have your chart handy for you to use as we do the examples. So we're going to start with a pretty simple example. In your homework, you will be asked to convert certain quantities, and those will be written exactly like this, which is why we have an example. So in part A, I want you to take 330 minutes, and we want to convert it to hours. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. So we're going to use dimensional analysis for this, and let me pull the steps back up. Step 1 is to set up the given rate as a ratio. So the only thing that's given to us is 330 minutes. So we're going to write it as 330 minutes over 1, because there's nothing else given to us. And then what I like to do is I put a vertical line in between to indicate that this is one rate. And we are going to set up another ratio right next to it so that we get to hours. So here's where it gets tricky and you have to actually think about it. And I know that this is going to look very, very different. We want to convert to hours, but we want the minutes to reduce. So if I have minutes in the numerator on the left, I have to put the minutes in the denominator. I know that 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. So that's my conversion factor. So 1 hour is 60 minutes. And then I know where to put everything because I want the minutes to reduce, because I have one on top and one on bottom. And we finally got to our hours, so we're going to be done here. So what we do is we multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators and divide. So here's what I want to make sure that I see. Because I have minutes in the numerator and minutes in the denominator, they reduce. So you can cross them out. And then we multiply. 30 times 1 hour is 330 hours over 1 times 60 is 60. And you can use your calculator to reduce this. So 330 divided by 60 gives me 5.5 hours. And we ended up with hours because the minutes reduced here. I know that a lot of you could probably do this in your head, but I want you to show the actual units reducing, because when we get to longer conversion problems, you won't be able to keep track of all of it in your head, and you need to keep everything labeled. So let's do the next one together again, and we'll keep all the steps up. So I have 5 feet 3 inches in part B, and I want to convert it to just inches. Because my 3 inches is already in the inches, all I'm going to convert is the 5 feet. So we're going to write that as a ratio first. 5 feet over 1, because we aren't given anything else. We put a vertical line, and then we're going to write the conversion factor. So because I'm going from feet to inches, and I was given feet, I know I'm going to put the feet in the denominator because I want those to reduce. My conversion factor for inches to feet is 12 inches in 1 foot. And then my feet reduce, so I'm left with inches, which is what they're asking for. So now I multiply straight across. 5 times 12 gives me 60 inches over 1 times 1, which is 1. But I need to remember that they started with 5 feet 3 inches. So to get the total inches, I'm going to add 3. So 60 plus 3 equals 63 inches. Let's do an example that requires a few more steps. Example 3. The CN Tower in Toronto, Canada is about 1,815 feet tall. The question is about how many meters tall is the tower? And then they give you the conversion factor. So I circled the conversion factor. 1 meter is 3.28 feet. So step 1, we need to set up the given rate as a ratio. So we have 1815 feet over 1. And please notice that I always put the units here, because as a teacher, when I'm reading your work, I want to see what reduces. Put your vertical line to set up the next ratio. And here's where I'm going to put my conversion factor. So my conversion factor, I know I want feet in the denominator because I want them to reduce. And my I'm going to meters, so 3.28 feet is 1 meter. So I want you all to notice that my feet will reduce, and I'll be left with meters only, which is what the question is asking. So 1,815 times 1 gives me 1,815 meters over 1 times 3.28. My units reduce, so it's just the number on bottom. And when you use your calculator, that gives you about 553 meters. So you can use your calculator there to do 1,815 divided by 3.28. Let's do one more problem that actually requires multiple conversions, and then I'll let you guys practice some of this on your own. So example 4. You run the 50-yard dash in 5.8 seconds. So 50-yard dash and 5.8 seconds are going to be some mathematically important information. And the question is, what speed is that in miles per hour? So we're going to be doing two different conversions here. So let's get this set up. The information given is that I do 50 yards in 5.8 seconds. So I have an actual rate here. 50 yards in 5.8 seconds. Put your vertical line. Now my question wants this rate in miles per hour. So I'm going to have to convert yards to miles and also seconds to hours. So I'm going to convert yards to miles first. So I know that I want yards to be on the bottom, and which means I'm going to put miles on top. And that's when this chart is going to come in handy. So there are 1,760 yards in 1 mile. So 1 mile is 1,760 yards. So what I want you guys to make sure that you do is note that the yards reduce, because I had 1 in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. And now I'm left with just miles on top, which is what we want to happen because we're looking for miles per hour. However, I still have seconds in the denominator and I want to convert that to hours. So we're going to have to do a second conversion. So I draw another vertical line. I set up my next ratio. And I know I want my seconds to reduce. So because I have seconds in the denominator, in order for them to reduce, I'm going to put seconds in the numerator, because then they will cancel. Sorry, they will reduce. And I'm changing that to hours, so I'll put hours in the denominator. There are 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. That's not actually on your chart. You could look it up online, or you can convert seconds to minutes and then minutes to hours. But I'm only showing doing it once. So let's look at what happened. My yards reduced because I have 1 in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. And my seconds reduce because I have 1 in the denominator and then 1 in the numerator. And the units I have left are miles and hours, which is what we want. So we're done, and we can now just do our multiplying. So I multiply all the numerators straight across. 50 times 1 times 3,600 gives me 1,800,000. $180,000. Sorry, guys. 180,000 miles. So make sure that you're still writing the units. Divided by 5.8 times 1,760 times 1 is 10,208 hours. So the very last step is you are going to divide 180,000 by 10,208, and you should get approximately 17.6, and that's miles per hour. If you wrote 17.6 miles per hour, that is also the same thing. So that's a conversion with multiple steps. Your homework, remember, has changed from your homework log. So please make sure that you note that. It's written on the board. I want you to practice this in class right now. So go ahead and get started on your homework. We will go over questions on Thursday, and we'll be doing some more practice with this concept and these types of conversions on Thursday. So I will see you guys then.